At the mouth of the River Plate lies Montevideo, Uruguay's capital. Monumental buildings commemorate an economic boom the country experienced during the Second World War. It seems almost as if time had stood still ever since. Globalization has yet to reach this corner of the globe. At every turn, one finds the horse-drawn carts of the garbage pickers, known here as cartoneros. At last count, there were about 16,000 in the city. Mario supports his family by collecting and sorting trash.
I have 7 children at home. The littlest is 5 months old. The biggest is 12 years. So I have to get out and earn the money. I married very young.
He has no training or skills.
You can't find any real jobs these days. They're always looking for people with experience in construction, not just helping hands. I've worked as a builder. I can dig wells, mix cement, but I can't put up a wall. I don't know how.
Recycling is one possibility for people to make a living who can't find any other job where opportunities are so limited. Javier is 15 and Jose is 16.
I'm collecting food for our pig. We'll slaughter it at the next holiday and have a good time. We're also looking for food for our horse. We sell the boxes and bottles. We keep a little money for ourselves and give the rest to the family. We're on the road from 8 in the evening till morning, and we go out again from 12 noon till 6.
You work the whole night through?
Yes, all night and then again during the day. We make 2 rounds every day. I want to do something else.
Me too. I don't want to spend my whole life on the horse cart.
What can you do without education?
I don't know. Something. No idea. Maybe I'll work in construction.
I want to be a baker, but I've never learned how. I guess I'll have to.
Most of the cartoneros live on the city's outskirts, where they store their pickings until they sell them to a recycling dealer. Luis has made enough from garbage to get ahead, just a bit. He's retired his old horse and cart.
I've been working the streets for 30 years with this old mare, and now I've got a truck.
Now Luis has a little recycling operation of his own, with a truck and 4 young employees.
I go out and look around for something I can pick up. And then I get my people, and we recycle everything. Copper, brass, aluminum. We sell the scrap and spare parts, and I process it and sell it.
Luis has learned to derive the maximum value from every resource, including from his truck.
This is a 1956 Opel with the original motor. It's been on the road for 54 years.
The truck is a collector's item. Luis has found a kind of philosopher's stone, a way to turn junk into gold.
This is real gold. You scrape it off with a sander. It fetches 1,000 pesos a kilo. Now you see how my business works?
Ismael Bertola grew up in Sweden.
This is my friend.
His parents returned to Uruguay after the years of military rule here.
Y te encontrás con que, bueno, como con tu lugar, con gente muy parecida a vos, que piensa lo mismo, que
You find your place.
tiene como los mismos códigos en un país donde
People here are more like me.
económicamente
They communicate through the same codes.
es difícil sobrellevar
Economically, it's harder here.
la parte económica más que nada, pero a la vez tiene otras cosas que son
People have to work a lot more.
esto, por ejemplo, de
But incredible things happen.
poder ir a un lugar
Candombe, for instance.
que te reunís con
You meet
gente,
people and form a group without any kind of business interests getting in the way.
como una energía grupal de hacer eso y otras cosas sin tipo
And that's
de
much more human.
ni entre medio ni nada, es como algo más humano.
Every weekend, Ismael and his group perform Candombe, a kind of music and dance that African slaves brought to Uruguay in the 18th century. Long the exclusive province of the Afro-Uruguayans, today people of every colour and class play Candombe. The street culture has become part of the country's heritage.
Yo por lo menos siempre quise pensar que no, pero
I always used to think there was no racism here, but there is.
y en sí esto es
But in
algo
Candombe, black and white
que
people
demuestra
play
también
together.
una especie de unión, ¿no? Acá
I'm
en
friends with a
Uruguay,
bunch of people who never even think about anything like that.
con negros, digo yo, no sé, yo no lo vivo porque yo
It
voy
brings
para
us
ahí,
together.
estoy con un montón de gente que no piensa en esas cosas.
At the weekend, people all over Montevideo dance and drum Candombe. Preparations for Carnival go all year round. Traditionally, Uruguay's economy has been an agricultural one, founded on the estancias or ranches. Marcelo Fossati is an agronomist. He advises farmers on growing organic produce. He drops by to see the Montenegro family. Lindolfo Montenegro co-founded the Seed Network to collect and preserve domestic crop species. It started with a handful of farmers and today numbers over 100.
This is the seed bank, seeds of wheat, vegetables, and their bulbs. It's a dynamic bank, a collective one. The domestic species have to adapt continuously so we can maintain them. So it's important for the seed bank to be out here where the farmers are. It's important so the farmers don't vanish either.
This region has already lost most of its smallholders. Family farms no longer pay. Here, the Montenegro family is an exception.
We're lucky to have a fairly privileged piece of ground. We're pretty isolated here, so we don't have any big problems with contamination from the soybean farms.
A few kilometers away, a field has been prepared for planting genetically modified soybeans. Herbicide has been applied to kill off unwanted plants, the weeds. The soybeans have been modified to make them resistant, but the poison seeps into the groundwater.
Here in Uruguay, there are 4 or 5 corporations specialized in GM crops. They don't buy land, they lease it. They're not interested in what happens to the land in the future. They use it for 3 or 4 years. And when nothing grows on it anymore, when all that's left is desert, they move on and lease someplace else. And when all Latin America's natural resources have been exhausted someday, they'll go on to Africa or someplace and do the same. But eventually, they'll have to go to another planet, because we won't be able to grow anything on Earth anymore.
For decades, Lindolfo Montenegro has been developing several varieties of seed grain that he uses on his own farm and distributes to other organic farmers as well. Now, though, he worries that his plants will be contaminated by the genetically modified ones. The danger is especially high for corn.
If the corn is contaminated, it will also become transgenic, and that automatically makes it the property of the seed corporation that owns the rights to the modified gene. Then, not only can they take the farmer's corn crop away from him, the corn he's been planting forever, they can make him pay to keep on using it.
Marcelo Fossati ends the day with a visit to friends who grow medicinal herbs and plants. They are also part of the ever-growing seed network of small farmers who are making a stand against the agro-corporations. We cross the border into southern Brazil. The state of Rio Grande do Sul has attracted immigrants from all parts of Europe. Many of them were fleeing hunger, poverty or war. Starting in the mid-1800s, many Germans settled in the region around the town of Gramado. Today, Gramado is attracting tourists with its exotic storybook Germany image of black forest houses, Wurst and folk dances. The German House of Youth keeps up old traditions. Gerhard Kleiner's father started the House of Youth in the late 1950s.
There was a bank standing on this spot. From here, my father and mother and brothers and sisters and I looked over there and discovered the piece of ground for the House of Youth.
Now Gerhard Kleiner's son, Dieter, has taken over as director of the House of Youth. He also organises the German folk dances in the region, over 60 groups just in the region around Gramado.
On the one hand, we're proud of it, but on the other, we have to decide if it's really such a good thing. If people in Germany no longer place much value on German culture, I don't know how much longer we'll be able to keep it up here.
In the countryside around Gramado, far from the tourist crowds, live the descendants of the 19th century German immigrants to Brazil. Gerhard Kleiner listens to the stories the oldest generation has to tell of these immigrants. He can save them for posterity. Every settler received a grant of 25 hectares, enough to make a good living. Some of the small family farms remain, worked by father and son and mother and daughter.
In Deutschland?
You'll never make it to Germany. It's too far away. Costs too much as well. If I were rich, I'd go have a look, but I can't.
Their Hunsrück dialect from the Moselle Valley has become established here, even though most of the settlers came from Pomerania, on the other side of Germany. They distill their own schnapps and make their own Wurst, just like their ancestors from Pomerania did. The current generation is the 8th since the time of settlement. They remain largely isolated from the rest of Brazil.
We Germans, both ethnic and immigrant, have integrated here as Brazilians, even though we speak German and keep up German customs and traditions and cultivate our Germanness. And we're very proud of it. But even so, we're Brazilians first.
From Gramado, we continue on to Rio de Janeiro. To the rest of the world, Rio evokes images of the beaches of Ipanema and the Copacabana, of samba and soccer. But this city has many sides and many problems that it has to deal with before the 2014 FIFA World Cup or the 2016 Olympic Games. "17-year-old Barbara Leoncio is a 200-meter sprinter and a star in Rio and the rest of Brazil. She was the face of the campaign that eventually won the Olympic Games for Rio de Janeiro.
I think sports should get more support, especially here in Brazil. The government should invest in it seriously. It has to help us create the appropriate conditions for 2016. Then we'll be able to achieve some really good performances.
Barbara comes from a poor background, like everyone here. Her coach Paulo Servo has made it his personal mission to give disadvantaged young people opportunities through sports. After training, Paulo invites the athletes home with him for dinner to make sure they get the necessary nutrients.
How can kids who don't eat properly go in for sports? It isn't easy. So I opened a kitchen here. At first we only served one meal a day, but now we're fixing breakfast, lunch and dinner. Like all the kids who come to us, Barbara was undernourished. She weighed 8 kilos under the normal range for her age. Today she's a very determined person, very disciplined. She sets an example. But she had a really hard time at first.
After dinner, Paulo drives Barbara to the João Avalanche Olympic Stadium for an interview for a sports magazine from Spain. Paulo has taken Barbara wherever she needed to go and protected and helped her since she was a child, both in her private life and her athletic career.
He's always helped me, right from the start. It was very important for my life. In the poor neighborhoods where we live, The kids are totally delighted with the practice. Sports gives them an opportunity to change their lives. He changed my life too. I think it's wonderful that Paulo goes straight to the children in the schools. He tells me he can't do this forever. And I've told him I'll take his place and look after the kids.
Barbara would have liked to practice here for the Olympics, but the stadium is leased to a soccer club.
I think they should open the stadium to all the athletes. It's the best track in Rio. We'd really like very much to practice here.
Even if a cracked, bumpy track is all she'll ever have to practice on, Barbara still has her dream of an Olympic medal, and she's determined to achieve it. Dona Marta is one of Rio de Janeiro's hundreds of favelas, but it's a slum with a difference. Dona Marta is the only favela with its own cable car. Many other things have changed here in recent years too. Ivan Mundine sees Dona Marta as a kind of model favela.
It's a relatively small community wedged into the heart of the southern zone. It practically has natural geographical limits in form of the forest preserves and the cliffs. And in a way, that made it easier to test this kind of model here.
It's got its own cable car, its houses have been rehabbed, and massive police raids have pushed out its drug dealers. Perhaps most importantly, the police have stayed on in the favela and maintained good relations with its residents. A concrete wall prevents the favela's expansion into the adjacent nature preserve.
Dona Marta has been serving as one big laboratory for this new form of assistance from the state, which provides a technical school, a medical facility, a daycare center, and a special unit of peacemaker police. This experience has been very productive. Once it's been evaluated, this could mean a massive change for Rio de Janeiro.
Many of Dona Marta's residents are still waiting for that change to reach their doorsteps. Among them, Rosângela and her 4 children. They barely scrape by in their tiny shack.
Here are 2 of my children. The other 2 are out in the street. I can't live in the streets with my 4 children. I want a better place to finish raising them. The wealth of the common people is their children.
The musician Pierre Avila has been working in the favela for many years now. He's started a music school here. Pierre says it's not enough to drive out the drug dealers. The only thing that will have any lasting effect is to create opportunities for the young people. It's the only hope they have of breaking out of the vicious cycle of poverty, drugs, violence and unemployment.
If you give them a chance, you'll see that many young people are willing to work, willing to help build Dona Marta, thanks to these new policies. So it's a question of opportunity and cultural development. Now these kids have a music school, a soccer club, and they're not running with the armed gangs anymore. When Christ died, where did the pilgrims find shelter? In Martha's house. This mountain has the geographical name Dona Marta, but we prefer to call the neighborhood Santa Marta. That better expresses the pacifism and hospitality of the people here. Last year we wrote a song that goes, Santa Marta, my life, my passion, my story, my home.
Hope for a better life has returned to Rio de Janeiro's favelas. In the next part of our series, we turn back south to Ciudad del Este in Paraguay.